start with a video that we put together of Matt's shop, highlighting some of the equipment he has. The video or the pictures were taken during a shop visit we had there. I think it was in 2018, a couple of years ago. And then we added some other pictures to complement that. So here we go. Okay, so that was just a brief overview of what we had, and that showed some of the equipment you have, Matt, from the CNC, the edge bander, the sander, and the finishing room. And then also your showroom, which is a huge investment too, even though it's not machinery, that's also an interesting investment. So we might have some questions about that as well. To start, someone posted a question during the registration process for last week's webinar, and I've posted that on the screen now. And it talks about trying to get a CNC instead of replacing, or instead of getting employees, because it's so hard to find employees these days, more so probably even with COVID. So they're talking about whether they do the investment, how they do the training of that, and that kind of stuff. The answers on the forum when I posted that related to maybe they need to outsource instead of buy a machine. What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
Using technology to gain efficiencies, and every sales guy will tell you this, there's no work comp you have to pay on it, there's no payroll you have to pay on it. It's there when you need it. It doesn't call in sick. So the question, and using our retail line, so I guess you guys are whoever posed this question is buying out other cabinets to kind of supplement production. But we can't keep up with the demand we have now. I'm not sure if, yeah. So training, gosh, training is big. It's a learning process, trying to, what software you're using, whether you're setting up the software just to generate drawings or you're using it to generate cut list. We started out, when we purchased a 4-man shop back in November of 2007 that already had Cabinet Vision purchased and using it just for the cut list. I knew when we purchased the company that I wanted to embrace technology to become more efficient. So in doing so, we made sure as we were using Cabinet Vision that we were setting it up so when we did get CNC equipment that we could better position ourselves to dive down into technology. There is a lot of teeth gnashing. There's a lot of learning. It depends on how capable you are of running technology. If you're comfortable with computers, you've got to weigh in all those variables to determine if it's right for you. And I would suggest maybe going to another shop, another CMA shop that has one, that is running one. If you're close by, you're more than welcome to come and see our shop. But you really have to determine your comfort level and maybe tiptoe into it like we usually do, is tiptoe into every major investment by learning about it up front. And like I said, if there's any shop. So I don't know if that helps you out any, but I'd be more than happy to answer any follow-up questions.
No, I think that's a good point you make, Matt, about, learning the software first. We've talked about that a lot. One of the strategies for doing that, related to outsourcing, as was commented on in the forums as another option, is that you do the software, create the own cut list, that sort of thing yourself, but then have someone else do the CNC work, another nearby shop who has the equipment already, to essentially try it out, the
Sure.
process, see how it works for you.
Yeah.
And then eventually when you're able to get your own CNC machine, that's a good option there. And I know someone else on the call today did that. And I'm wondering, Chris, if you'd be willing to speak about that momentarily. I'm going to give you permission to talk. And if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, if you're able to talk at this moment. And if you're not, we'll call on you later. I understand. Okay, we'll ask Chris later. He's probably in his truck running errands, as most of you probably are actually. It's one of those days, it's one of those weeks. I'm glad everyone's getting busy again. And we're just happy that you are busy, and we're happy for those of you who are able to join us. Chris did just message me that he just had someone walk in his office. So we'll call on him a little later about this process. I'm going to go ahead and just open it up to anyone for questions at this time. And we kind of remind you of some of the talking points we talked about last week it was. We talked about the selection process, the negotiating, the setup, the things that you need to consider in addition to the machine, the ancillary equipment, material handling, all the other processes involved. And then we went into documentation, training, service, parts. So any of those things are valid questions. And you're able to go ahead and do the chat area. You can ask that just of the panelists or ask of everybody. You can raise your hand here if you can figure out how to do that through the participant area. And you can also use the Q&A area to do so. So take your time, think it through. And if you really want to share your own experience related to buying machines, you're able to do that too. Again, raise your hand and I'll be happy to call on you. And Matt, while we're waiting, is there anything else you thought of over the week that you wish you would have shared?
Gosh, I'm like everybody else. We're just super busy trying to keep caught up. We're fighting just people getting a little sniffle and just being paranoid. We go have them get a COVID test. There's a rapid test. It costs us $160 to get it back within 24 hours. Knock on wood, we have not had many issues yet, but actually we had a couple of office staff actually catch it that were out for 14 days or whatever they had to quarantine for. But most of the time we're keeping our head above water, trying to push as much product through, it's just a balancing act, making sure that you're not pissing off too many customers. The ones you piss off, hopefully it's not your good customers.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I know it's a big concern. You know, COVID is ramping up again, unfortunately, throughout the country. And my sister has a construction company, and she has had to shut the whole company down because one of her foremans was sick and didn't tell anyone. And then they found out and they had to shut the whole company down. So you have to remind people to be mindful of this. It's not done yet. And the quarantine is real. So Chris is back now and he's willing to answer the question. The question was just, Chris, if you could talk about how the experience you had with learning the software, having someone else doing the CNC cutting for you, and then how that eased your transition when you got the CNC machine. You'll have to unmute yourself, but you should have the ability to do so.
I think I just did that.
Yep.
Yeah, so I know, I'm sure people have heard me say this before, but you know, we kind of like Matt, we embraced technology right from the start. Kind of wish we'd done the machinery part right from the start too, but we got involved with cabinet vision very early. It wouldn't have really mattered what piece of software it was. We just, you know, that's the one we picked. And slowly but surely worked ourselves up to where we were, you know, doing cut lists and things like that. Eventually decided to take the leap into the screen to machine, even though I didn't have a CNC at that point. And there was another shop in the same complex that I was at that had one. So we implemented our cabinet vision package onto their machine. So when cabinet vision came in, they set up my machine or my software on his machine, and we were running back and forth and making samples and whatnot. And we did that. We had that, him cutting parts. We would just output. I actually, that's how long ago it was. We output it onto a DVD. Would take the DVD over there with all the printouts and give them to them, and they would put stickers on. We'd give them the stickers. They would cut them. They'd put the stickers on. They'd put them on a gigantic pallet, and when they were done cutting everything, they'd put it on their forklift and load it up, and either put it in our truck or drive it over, whatever. And it worked really well. But for us, it was a huge upgrade when, sorry, my dog is attacking me. It was a huge upgrade for us when we started cutting things on our own, because instead of this massive pallet full of parts that were in no particular order, we'd have to dig through things to find stuff and figure out what needed what edge band. And, we started cutting the things on our own. We could kind of organize it a whole lot easier and saved ourselves a whole lot of time. But from the technology end, when we got our machine, we knew how to run it already. It was just a matter of getting, the software implemented to the machine that we bought. And the minute that was done, we were making cabinets, which I've heard from other people is not very normal. That there's a big learning curve, but we'd gone through that already. So I feel like it was a great way to do it.
Chris, wasn't that like from during the setup phase, from when the machine arrived to when you were making parts again? Wasn't it about a week?
It was about 10 days, but that was as fast as they would put me on the schedule to do the implementation.
Right.
They wouldn't schedule the implementation until the machine was up and running. So yeah, I want to say the machine arrived on like a Friday, and maybe a week later, Monday, it was running.
See that?
We were making parts. And it could have been that day had the implementation happened that day. And we were waiting. We had we had some jobs that I kind of refused to send over to the other guy because I thought, well, I got my own machine. Why would I pay him to do it? And it ran pretty hard for the first, 2 weeks, just getting us caught up.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm super glad I did it that way. I don't think I'd do it any other way, truthfully.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. And specifically in response to the question that was asked earlier, about I can't find employees, what should I do? So take it in a phased approach like you did, where it's software, outsource, and then get your own machine.
Yeah, I don't, if it hadn't been so convenient for the outsourcing, I don't know if I'd gone that route. But, this guy was literally like 3 doors down from me. So it wasn't, it really wasn't a big deal to do that. And I could walk over if there was a problem or whatever, but, if I'd had to drive across town, I don't know if I would have done it, but.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know a lot of CMA members utilize, which we'll talk about during next week's webinar, Brian Clancy, when he speaks about how he does CNC work for other people. So that's a whole different webinar actually, about how to further maximize your machine once you've bought it.
Yeah, and I do that now, actually, as well. But
that's great.
I try not to do it a lot, just because it never seems to, it always seems like it's going to happen at just the perfect time, and then there are delays, and it suddenly comes in when you've got 80 sheets of something for yourself to cut. But
right. Well, there's a huge argument about that out there about whether you need to run your machine all the time, or and what the price is for that, for cutting for other people.
Yeah, I'm super happy to have mine parked.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's okay that it doesn't run all the time.
Yeah.
Which is the great debate.
Yes.
Whether you make money every hour or not. So, well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate your input. And if you feel like jumping in any other time, go ahead and do so.
I'll do it.
Thank you. And then anyone else have a similar experience, a different experience, something they did right, something they did wrong and wish they hadn't done? Feel free, again, raise your hand. I can unmute you and you're well allowed to speak. And then again, questions can go to the Q&A tab. And I'm assuming because you guys have joined us today, you have questions, so don't be bashful. Go ahead and ask, and I don't even have to say who you are if you don't want me to call on you, if you just, but there are no dumb questions, as they say. But Matt, I was going to ask you another question. We talked last week a little bit about how you purchased used to try it out before you bought it. And I wonder if you had anything more to say about that, if you wished, if you would do it again, type of thing.
Absolutely. The last piece of equipment that we just purchased was a CNC dowler. And just before that, it was a molder, a 5-head molder, whining 5-head molder. And I tell you what, guys, it saves you just like buying a car. You're paying for that new car versus a used one where you get all that depreciation hits immediately. We ended up being very successful with the molder because we used to buy all of our crown moldings, our drawer sides from another molding company. And since we've been starting to do that, we used to, on all of our face frames, we used to have to rip them and then plane them just with a regular a grizzly planer with a spiral head, helical coil on it. And I tell you what, it has sped it up tremendously, squaring up our frames and running our own moldings. It's really dropped a lot of money to the bottom line for us.
See, that's great. There's the other argument, and probably another future webinar is about outsourcing and whether you try to do everything yourself or you outsource it. And you're a big enough shop with enough employees where you're able to do more of these things in-house.
Yeah, we started out with just 4 guys and my wife and I, and have slowly grown over the 13 years, just figuring out what the bottlenecks are and then using technology to open up those bottlenecks. Currently, I think with most cabinet shops, your bottlenecks, if you make your own doors, that is definitely a bottleneck. But once we started making our own doors, again, there's a lot of profit that dropped to the bottom line. The next one is our finish room. And in order to open up that bottleneck, we started out with an open face spray booth, just for the health and get the fumes out of the building. But within a couple of years, we invested in a enclosed spray booth. It's an auto body spray booth. It's got a 1 million BTU heater on it. That has tremendously sped up our finish department, just because you don't have to wait for that dry time. But I mean, it still is our bottleneck. We're always still trying to fight that. We've recently gone to just 2 shifts to help out in the finishing area.
Can't keep up. It's a good problem to have.
It's great problems.
So you mentioned last week that you were interested in or looking to buy an automated finishing system.
Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I've got somebody stopping by next Tuesday, I believe.
Great.
Yep.
That's a big step for a CMA shop, I think.
It's a big one. It won't be a
step for anybody. Yeah. It's great. We'll have to learn more about that if you do implement that. Anyone else have a comment on used versus new, what you would recommend, support for a used, that being a problem, maintenance, parts? Go ahead.
What was the first part about support?
Yeah.
Support wise, you've got to really find a machine rep that you really trust, because there are a lot of machine reps out there that can talk a good game, but don't back up their product. We had actually issues with our spray booth. I had 3 people quote the spray booth for us, the enclosed spray booth, and went with a guy that I just seemed like I clicked a little bit better. I did see one of the spray booths here locally that he installed. But when it came down to backing up his product, he struggled in servicing us. So make sure you definitely vet, call references, at least 3 references of machines that he has just recently sold, not just cherry picked machinery, but the most recent purchases. Talk to them and see how their experiences are, any issues that arose that the machine rep was able to handle quickly, and hopefully, keep it all under warranty. But when you're buying used, typically it doesn't come with warranty, maybe slim 30 days, maybe 60, but definitely to see if you can get them to back up their used equipment they sell you with at least a 30-day warranty, if you're looking at something like that.
Yeah, and Matt posted through the chat about how to budget and plan for preventive maintenance. And a lot of the manufacturers have that program. Even if you didn't buy direct new machine from them, you can still purchase the service plan. And that's like an insurance package, right?
Yeah, I see Matt Craig posted there, get everything in writing. That is a huge deal to make sure you're just not listening to what they're saying and telling you. Make sure it's a written proposal.
Yep. And we talked about that a lot last week. Get it in writing and document everything in the same way, not just during the sale, but also with the processes and procedures that you get into place as you integrate the new machine into your processes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, parts and service is a big issue for anyone, regardless of the type of machine you buy or who you buy it from. You're not guaranteed that to be easy from anyone. Unfortunately, do not tell the machinery people I just said that.
You mentioned SOPs, standard operating procedures. Yeah. We just purchased, we had a Mohawk come up and do a little demo with the new cryogenic glue for joinery. We have had a big issue with, I would say 80% of our cabinets are paint grade, and 80% of those paint grade cabinets are white of some shade or form of white. And we always seem to get joint popping, even no matter how much glue squeeze we get out of it. I preach about the glue squeeze, make sure you get it out. And inevitably, we still get some joints that are popped. Mohawk came out, did a little demo with super glue that actually soaks into the joint, bonds the wood, and we've got, it should be here, I think the truck I saw come through today, that we're going to do our first full-scale job with the cryogenic glue to keep those joints from popping. But the test that we did run with them with their product worked great. They actually provided a nice PDF that we were able to print out for our department, your department, that will step-by-step line you out. So anytime you can partner with those types of salespeople that already have written standard operating procedures, it just saves you a ton of time of trial and error and just getting over that learning curve quicker.
For sure, that's a really good example. Thank you. The other thing I wanted to mention, we were talking about used versus new. Let's say you do invest in something. I'm curious if anyone out there attending today is interested or looking into buying something quickly now before the end of the year to take advantage of the Section 179 opportunities. And Matt, for your spray, your automated finishing line, would you do that yet this year?
Probably not. It's too far in the year. We actually have a lot of major capital improvements that we're doing on our building. I don't know if most of you guys out there have metal buildings. I bought another cabinet shop. Our first shop was about 5,000 square feet, a little over. We've got about 30,000 square feet under roof right now. But it was an older cabinet shop that shut down in 2009. And we got a lot of leaks. So we've got a bunch of orange big circles with X's in them on the floor where we're not supposed to park any wood or material or cabinets. That's one of the things that we're going to do, is do a rubberized roof coating on our building. One, to definitely seal up the leaks primarily, but two, also what they've, the material they've given us and what I've read on it, it's really going to reduce the heat in the summer months because it's going to be white reflective. So hopefully, and our shop is heated, but it's not cooled. So it gets really blistery hot and humid here in the summer months.
Well, that's a good example of other type of investments to make in your business, and maybe we should call this taking the leap, just investing in your business. And then also talk about how you, over the years, you've invested in a showroom. That also is a unique thing that not a lot of CMA members are able to do because of their size of their facility.
You know, with that, our showroom was very small at our first shop. The second shop was just as small also, because the previous cabinet shop that occupied our current building, he grew by word of mouth, and he really didn't need a showroom to show off anything. And if anybody's met my wife, she is definitely a salesperson. And she wanted something to show the clients so they could walk in, touch, hold, feel. We cannibalized, we used up probably, I don't know, about 1,800 square feet of our shop. Just put up another partition wall and filled it in with cabinetry, just small vignettes, nothing real too terribly big. But it really helps in having something that the customer can see and touch and feel. Kind of squirrel a little bit, but along the same lines, we've got a home show that we participate here in Springfield every year. It usually takes us a week to set up walls and move all the vignettes into the big E-Plex, so that the following week we can have a whole group, you know, all Springfield and the surrounding areas come through and see all the building trades, anywhere from HVAC to swimming pools, hot tubs, all in one spot. It's usually one of our biggest events that we attract clients to. A lot of the builders bring their clients in so that they can see all their subs in one stop. This year is going to be a little different due to COVID, and we're going to do a little experiment. I don't know if anybody's heard of Vortec out there, but it's a 3D rendering. Cabinet Vision is not known for their 3D renderings. And so we invested in that, where we saw it up at the CMA conference up in Chicago. And we were super impressed with it, so much so that they gave us a little trial to try it out, and all of our designers and technical designers loved it. It's a lot easier to switch on the fly colors or renderings with Vortec. But also they've got an add-on. It's quite expensive. It's $1,000 a year, but you can actually put goggles, either the Google goggles or Oculus goggles, on and walk through virtually what you've laid out in Cabinet Vision. So this year, thank the Lord that Shelley is going to pare back all of the cabinets that we have to move into the E-Plex. But we're going to have those Oculus goggles. I don't know how the public's going to perceive that, you know, with the virus, but it's something that we're going to try to embrace, again, technology to help the clients see the capabilities that we have in building their cabinetry.
That's a really good idea. Just bring lots of sanitizing wipes for those goggles.
Mm-hmm. Yep, lots of Lysol.
Yep. That's a really good idea. Matt keeps commenting, so let me share some of his comments, and that also just brings us to a few of the other topics. So as far as the setup goes and the rigging, he says it's overwhelming, you know, getting a new machine, and he advises to take a ton of notes and video whenever possible during the setup process, especially camera outside the shop and inside the shop, because the riggers damaged his last machine when they were unloading, and they attempted to hide it and then blame the trucking company. So you could be in a big legal battle if you don't have proof. So it's the video showed the damage and the accountability, and that resolved that problem. And then Oh, the point that we talked about, I think last week too, with service technicians, and make them your friends. And I think that's what James talked about in his presentation about running a 1 or 2 man shop too. And it's applicable no matter what size shop you have. Make them your friends. Not only will they help you in future purchases, but they will be, get their cell phone numbers and have them at your beck and call, because that's what they're for. So treat them, almost like Matt says, like gold, but they're like your friends and family too, because they are your lifeline, and they're there to help you out. So rely on them as you should, especially if you have that maintenance contract. Let's see, anyone else? I feel like no questions. This is an interesting question and answer with just a lot of stories, and I love it, because what I'd like for some of these webinars to evolve into is more of a focus, what's your problem discussion. So people, looking to buy new machines, people who have recently invested in machines and want to share their stories. So Ken, thank you for raising your hand, and I've unmuted you, I believe.
I think so. You got me? Can you hear me, Amanda?
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, great. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Great presentation and great follow-up. And I guess the storytelling, we just bought some equipment. We had made the decision to buy a CNC machine about 4.5 years ago, and really I can't imagine the shop without it now. I feel like it did bring us to a whole nother level. And we did take advantage of the tax code and able to write it off. We had some good years, and we were able to, in essence, my financial guy said, listen, I bought the machine at a 40% discount, because otherwise we'd be paying taxes on it. So really talk to your advisors about this, or other people in business that have, made some decisions around it. That being said, we recently, we were on the fence. We had an old edge banding machine that was just driving us crazy. The guys were spending hours on it. We didn't use it every day, but when we did, they were handling the pieces over and over again and trying to scrape them or fix the machine. The hood was open on the thing all the time. And on top of that, we had an old compressor was, we put more oil in it than an old Chevy, or old Ford, I should say. But it was just a lot of maintenance on that thing and kind of keeping things going. We made the decision to buy a new compressor and edge bander at the same time. We work with our distributor, our tool distributor that we've been working with for years up here. And they've been great. We shopped it around a little bit, but we decided to go with the people we trusted on service as well. So that, again, reinforcing your point on trusting who's going to service these things. One thing that did happen though, and it was a misunderstanding, I think. I had the sales rep for the compressor come through, and we decided on going a specific system. We spent some extra money on having independent components with a, so it's like a three-piece compressor with the water separator and so forth. But I wasn't there during that conversation. My shop manager, Kurt, was, and we got the impression that the compressor price was an installed price. After we got everything on the floor, they said, yeah, well, you got to get a plumber electrician to hook this thing up. And we're like, we thought this was an installed. So it was a little bit of a point of contention. I had no other point of reference. We ended up paying the compressor company to install it. It was $3,500. They did a great job. We bought the extended warranty type of thing with it. I guess it ended up costing the same as doing a kind of a maintenance agreement. So all the points you guys were talking about are all valid, and I just experienced all of those things with misunderstandings, extra costs. End of the day, you can try to figure out a return on investment on how much business you have, but also my shop isn't as valuable without that piece of equipment. We've got to a level now where we need these things, and the shop itself has a certain value, equity, if you want to call it that. And also the morale went way up with this new machine. I can tell you that, because the guys hated going to that edge band, and now they love it. They're sending me pictures of piles of pieces of wood with edge banding on it. And not everyone can get excited about that, but it was nice to see it from the guys on the floor. So just a reinforcement of everything you expressed there, Matt. Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I asked a question through the chat, and hopefully you guys can see that option. The question was, what are you in the market for? And what's your next big investment? So you can share that through the chat, either to all attendees or just me, and if you don't share it with everybody. So I'm going to respond to some of those. Randy's in the market for a 53-inch wide belt sander, and Matt Krieg is looking for a miter fold machine. So what are you looking for? Share your story. Now Matt Krieg would like to say something, so I'm going to allow you to talk, Matt. Matt, unmute.
Hear me?
There you go.
Okay. Hi, guys. One thing that happened to us when we bought some new machinery is a lot of the machines, this was an instance of a wide belt sander. We bought one from Europe, and it has individual soft start motors. And we missed out on a pretty substantial rebate of about $10,000. So something to keep in mind is talk to your power company or whomever you talk to about this. But when you're buying some of these new machinery, pieces are very efficient compared to old stuff, and there's more that is very easily left on the table. And a lot of them seem to expire in November, so it's definitely, we're kind of in that season. And a lot of them are grants, so you got to get on it, do it quickly. It's a tight timeline from the time you place the order to the time you get it installed and you're eligible to file the rebate. So talk to your power company. Talk to your insurance company too. Sometimes there's some things that they can do when things are, when you're in a safer environment. In the case of like a saw stop or through feed machinery, sometimes they're willing to work with you, but more so, should something happen before you have that machine insured, you might not be covered. And make sure that you have that catastrophic machine failure coverage too. We used that on a CNC that blew up a spindle. We try to run 5 wherever we're putting a new machine. Most stuff plugs in nowadays, things. It's really slick when you have a guy in Germany diagnosing something, and you don't want to be paying technicians rates while you're putting a cord across your shop.
No, thank you, Matt. Absolutely.
It's kind of weird stuff. Another thing I would recommend, I don't know if it's been covered, but take the time to draft your whole shop out in CAD or whatever program, hand draw it. Take it to the show. I mean, if you have it in CAD, if you're buying a significant enough amount of machinery, big companies will help you with a layout. They'll show you things you'd have never thought of.
No, that's a very good point, Matt, because Matt Wehner said last week, that he uses the cutouts, on graph paper for his machines to figure out layout. And the important thing to consider, not only a placement, is the material handling portion of that. Finding where machines go is the easy part,
We were fortunate when we bought our dowel insertion machine. It was from a bigger company, and they were pretty gracious. We gave them a layout and all of our machine sizes, and they gave us a flow we would have never thought of. So you're getting expertise from somebody who's seen hundreds, maybe thousands of shops around the world and knows more about the process than you're going to know your first few years running something.
Absolutely. And now, Chris, if you don't mind, I'm going to call on you again, because you rearranged your shop quite a bit when you got your CNC machine, and especially for dust collection, if I understand correctly. Did you want to elaborate on that?
I'm sorry, one more time.
I'm asking Chris
No.
about how he rearranged his shop. There he is.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find the screen. Well, we had a ton of rearranging to do, and as well as buying extra stuff as well. And some of that was CNC, some of that was, we did a lot when we had the edge bander as well, when we bought that one. I mean, that was a huge infrastructure, I don't know a better word, accessories anyway. Our dust collection upgraded, our air upgraded, and then we bought the CNC, and we had to move the edge bander, and anybody who's seen my shop knows it's kind of a weird layout. So getting the CNC to fit was not the simplest thing. So yeah, we had to move everything around. It took us probably 3 days of, just moving things around to get ready for the machine to get it in the door. And we were able through one of our other vendors helped us out with that. Gracious enough, the guy we bought the edge bander from, even though I didn't buy his CNC, helped me out with a layout that worked. So if you got relationships with these guys, it's usually pretty good thing to have anyway.
Exactly. It really is, not only with technicians, but with the salespeople, to have a relationship with them. And generally for service too, regardless of brand, most of them will still help you. Thank you, Chris. We have a question here from Randy on the chat. If any of you take a look at that, I'll read it out loud. He's asking if anyone has experience trading in or upgrading CNC machines. He has an older router, purchased used, and wants to get something newer and better. Question is, did the dealer take a trade-in? Did you sell outright, or did you just haul to the landfill? Anyone who wants to respond to that, you can respond. You can again raise your hand here, respond through the chat.
Yeah, I'll I don't know people who know the background of my. So we originally had purchased a used edge bander, which we sold. We actually got some help when we bought our first new edge bander. We had the sales guy there. He knows lots of shops and found somebody who was willing to buy it from us. So we sold it directly to someone else. And then on the when we traded that one in for our AirTech edge bander, trade-in is the wrong word, but when we sold it and bought the new edge bander, he found a shop again that wanted to buy it. So I wouldn't call it a dealer trade-in so much, but the sales rep for that manufacturer helped us out a lot, and made the whole process happen. So maybe talk to the guy you're dealing with, Randy, and see if he knows somebody who'd be interested in buying it from you.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what Matt Krieg just said through the chat too. He's just responding to the panelists. So you all might have not seen that, but he said he sold it outright. It was super easy, and there are always people looking. So let your suppliers know, and it'll be sold quick. And the truth is, right now, I know machines from the manufacturers are hard to get because of availability due to COVID. Factories were shut down, etc. So stock is an issue, and if someone's looking to buy, they'll buy your older machine. And Matt says too, you'll be amazed by how many hobbyists out there are looking to get something set up. So regardless of the type or age of the machine, they'd be interested in it. So that's a good point, Matt. Thank you.
Kind of add to the landfill comment. We had a forklift that went down on us. That was old. We put a lot of money into it over the years, and it just got to where it was too expensive to keep putting more money into it. We took it to a scrap metal place, and I got almost $1,000 for that dude. So yeah, recycling is a good way to, especially with metal prices the way they were, to pick up nice little extra cash that way.
Yeah, it's not just the landfill, but you're not paying to dispose of it. You're getting paid to do it. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you. For your edge bander, what'd you do with that one?
We actually sold it on X Factory. We had a really good luck with them. Posted it on there, just sent a bunch of photos and a video of it running, and then found someone, I think out of Atlanta, that ended up purchasing it.
Okay, great. And yeah, quite often those used dealers, that's all they do is sell used equipment like X Factory, will have a calculator on the site for you to determine the resale value. So that's usefully used if you're considering selling yourself too.
IRS Woodworking Auctions is another place to pick up a really good, inexpensive piece of equipment. It's online auction. Helps if you're close to the facility that's auctioning off their equipment, but it's a good way to pick up some cheap and expensive equipment.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And then Randy responding to everyone now too about the input. Thank you for the input. And he said his problem right now is for a buyer, if he were to sell it himself, that the manufacturer no longer offers tech support for a machine that old. So he would need to disclose that information, of course.
Yes, treat everybody the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, you don't want to be surprised. You would do the same thing. Ken, you had your hand raised again. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just another comment when, and this is one of the benefits of CMA, but we had our Boston event and we had a little party at our shop, and one of the local guys knew that we were interested in maybe upgrading our edge bander, and he was looking for a backup edge bander. He was busy, he just thought, and he had someone that was a tinkerer that he thought could mess around with the machine, and our guys were all fed up with it. So he mentioned that to me. So when the time came to finally pull the trigger, I spoke to him, and he bought it off me, for a few bucks anyway. So it helped offset a little bit of the new purchase, and he benefited from it because he felt like he could use it in his shop. So there's value in what you have. The compressor that we had was really junk, but part of the price was that the other guy would take that thing away. I didn't have to haul it away. So the guy that supplied the new compressor took the old one away. I'm sure he scrapped it or skinned it for some valuable parts or whatever. And at that point, we didn't really care. We just wanted it out of our mess here, out of our shop, and he could take it. So there's always a way to make it work, I think.
Well, we talked about, I think we talked about it, Matt, during last week's presentation, was about the redundancy of the old process, how you did it before you got the new machine, whether you retain that method, whether it's an older machine or a simpler non-automated method. Does anyone else have any input on that? Matt, you want to respond to that again today?
Sure. No, we just kept a lot of our old dado stack table saws in a back building just in case the CNC ever did go down. It went down on us once with a spindle crash, but we were able to get it up and going fairly quickly with little downtime.
Yeah, see, that's why it's valuable to keep have a backup process no matter what you do. Let's see, we have about 10 minutes left, so if anyone has been hesitant to ask a question or raise their hand, go ahead and take the opportunity to do so now. Matt Krieg has raised his hand again, so I will go ahead and unmute you, Matt. Go ahead.
The one thing I'll say too, to Matt's point with the redundancy, it is nice to have, but there does come a point where it's just like, okay, it's time to move on. We're comfortable with what we're using. We try to have processes though that go back. If we have a machine that we have mothballed in the back, we'll usually try to make some notes on how we did what we did before we put it away. It's amazing how quickly you forget to do things. And I know I've talked with some CMA members about at a CNC, people forget how to do basic things like cut an adjustable shelf and they run it on the CNC. So some of the stuff, the more basic tools can still be handy, and some of them don't take up much space. I see a lot of people getting rid of line boring things and some of the benchtop stuff prematurely. And it's sometimes some of those things are faster to over by hand. In the case of a cabinet side or whatever, if it's a Euro box, you can just go, if everything's set up where it matches, you can go make a side real quick versus to stop a drawing, program, send it to a machine.
Right, yeah, you've said that in the past, Matt, too, about documentation. Not only your current new process, but keep the old documentation on how you used to it, because you may have forgotten if you don't use it that often. But Matt, the other thing you said was about deciding which type of machine to use to do the job. Just because you have a CNC machine doesn't mean you have to use it to cut everything you have. And Chris, I think you've talked about that in the past too, about when you go back to your table saw versus using the CNC and what you use for one-offs. And go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, I definitely, when I first got mine, would spend hours trying to figure out how to cut something on the CNC, and then would have a epiphany moment of, I could have cut this on my table saw in 10 minutes. You know, why am I still sitting here? So I know one of the people Matt was talking about was me that he talked to. So it is true. It's a trap that you fall into really quickly for using it. So definitely don't forget how to use things
For
or how
sure.
you used to do things.
Yeah. Anyone else more input to like to hear from some of you others on the call who have tuned in today? And I'm sure you have questions. That's why you're here. So go ahead, you can ask again through the chat, through the Q&A, or raise your hand. And Matt wants to speak again. So I'm going to ask you to unmute, Matt.
All right. Well, I'm just talking because nobody else is, so I'd much rather listen. Anyways, one of the things is just like Chris was saying, don't fall into that trap. It's a weird thing. You get these new machines and you feel like you have to do everything with it, and you really look at the numbers sometimes and say what makes sense. And not everybody's going to want to get on board right away. Just those guys. Some of them take a little longer to come around once it's proven. Not everybody's a risk taker in your shop. There's one other point I was going to make, and I can't think of it right now.
Documentation.
No, I say that all the time. I don't know. I don't know. Ask some questions, you guys. This is a very valuable chance to learn things you wouldn't otherwise learn.
Yeah, and again,
If Matt wanted to work in there, you know, you can always Google the answers.
Yeah, Google it. That's what I do.
oh, no, we had that joke. Everyone who's on the call came from we did this session with Matt and Chris at I believe it was AWFS a few years ago, and Matt's response to someone in the audience's question was just Google it.
Somebody was asking me about tool feed rates and feed speeds and RPMs, and I said, I don't know. I just Google it every time I have a question. It's fast.
Yeah.
Keeping a big book and looking it up. That's how I do math problems now too. I just type it into Google, and you'd be amazed.
Some people go on the CMA forum. Some people Google it.
Yeah, that guy got really mad about it, apparently.
He did. We had a bad review because of that. So
yeah, if it works for you, it was my idea. If you're mad about it, it was probably Chris telling you to do it.
Exactly. But yeah, about the forums, I want to remind you that if you didn't get the chance to speak today, or something comes up later on, we're going to continue this conversation in the forums. I'll send you the link again after this session with the link to the special thread just for this topic. It will never expire, so go ahead and use it whenever you have a need. If you're not considering a new machine right now, but do in the future, feel free to use that.
I remembered what I was going to say.
Okay.
I would keep an open mind with your equipment, and when they're installing it, ask if anybody's doing anything weird with it that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
One of the cases is we use our edge bander to edge doors with a square edge. It's got counter rotating diamond cutters, and I can get the exact amount off of 5-piece wood doors with it and just turn all the edge banding off. In the case of our CNC, we had some preconceived notions, and we were going to continue building cabinets like we were during pre-CNC times. And at that time, the cabinetware implementation guy come in, he laughed at us, and we kind of bristled up. We were like, well, this has worked for us forever. We had an old point-to-point machine, it rocked. And he just laughed at everything we were asking for help with. We had this list of all these things, and he just said, that's not how you do it when you cut on a CNC. So keep an open mind. Really, when people say things and they seem weird, listen in. You might kind of find out that the notions you have are going to be challenged and affected pretty greatly. So you buy these machines and you're all excited, but don't just keep doing what you did before you had the machine. Use it to its full potential.
Good point, Matt. And that is why you wanted to upgrade and get the automation in the first place. So don't forget that. Don't lose sight of that once you have the machine. And then Matt,
Yeah, we were going to literally just cut like left and right cabinet sides on it, like we did with our point to point. It was an old DOS machine. Took forever to program. So we could standardize parts and trim them to fit. The same idea with a nested machine, instead of just, we were going to make lefts and rights and keep some inventory of spare parts in case things got damaged. And I mean, this was early 2000s, so it was a little bit different time frame, different thought process. But it was totally wrong what we had in mind that we were going to do with this big, expensive machine. We would have hobbled ourselves from the beginning.
And Matt, you're probably the original person who said buy more than you need, and that's a great example of that you bought that big machine that you didn't know what you were going to do with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to take a chance at going out of business, might as well go out big. It doesn't hurt any more or less.
Go big or go home, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that we spent 6 figures outside our comfort zone, and it's opened more doors for our business and done more for us than had I just kind of gone smaller. I mean, it opened me up to a whole new world of business.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Chris is very good at spending your money. So if you listen to him, you can change your business. But
Pretty good at spending my own too. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hate when I see people cheaping out, especially, I mean, years ago, I saw a lot of people buying CNCs that didn't have adequate vacuum. They were clamping parts and T-rails, and sure, you can do it, but the gains are going to be so minimal that in cabinet making, I don't see the value to it. You really have to kind of go outside your financial comfort zone too. It's really expensive to buy one of these machines. It's even more expensive to buy one, realize it doesn't work, limp buy, and then have to go buy another one a short time later and sell one loss. I know there's another CMA member that had a really bad experience that way, and he kicked himself. He just said, I didn't spend enough money in the first place. And you got to be careful. Watch out for some of those almost too good to be true deals. There's a reason that people aren't running them, and nobody wants to go out and bash a company or a salesperson, but sometimes unscrupulous stuff that happens, or it's just people do it themselves because they're so focused on that bottom line number.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you got to look at, what's possible, what can you do, what can you grow your company into? And it's a risk. I mean, I'm not going to go to sleep occasionally over almost a big dumb decision, but you just have to have whatever it to push through and get to that level with it. I mean, I'm not as reckless as you guys make me sound.
Well, speaking of that, we talked a lot about CNCs today because that is, for many, the first foray into new machine. So the next step that we're taking with our webinar program is next week we start a series on CNC essentials, how to maximize your machine. And then the week after that, we have the closer look about CNC essentials, which is a discussion like we had today. The point of CNC essentials, it's for people who have recently purchased a CNC and things they need to know to, again, maximize their machine. So Brian Clancy does this presentation and it should be a good one. So I encourage you to register and tune in. I will send that link too in the follow-up email, which I'll send later today. So I want to thank you. It's been an hour. I want to thank you all for attending. And again, let's continue this conversation in the forums.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you.